Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Hashtag Clocked In with me, your host, Jordan Edwards. I'm thrilled to have you tune in as we dive into the dynamic world of productivity, success, and stories of incredible individuals who've mastered the art of getting things done. Whether you're commuting, hitting the gym, or just relaxing at home, this podcast is the go-to source for inspiration and actionable tips to level up your productivity game. I'm on a mission to unravel the secrets of those who seem to effortlessly manage their time and achieve their goals. So if you're ready to clock in and unlock your full potential, you're in the right place. We've got a lineup of amazing guests, industry experts, and thought leaders who will share their insights and strategies to help us crush your to-do list and make the most out of every moment. Get ready to get inspired, motivated, and equipped with the tools you need to supercharge your productivity. This is Hashtag Clocked In with Jordan Edwards. Let's dive in. Hey, what's going on, guys? I got a special guest today. We have Dr. Varun Gandhi. He's a life orchestrator, solopreneur, angel investor, inventor, philanthropist, and a water doctor. He enjoys orchestrating businesses, events, and ideas about the self-image. How you doing today, Doc?
Oh, I'm doing fantastic, Jordan. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, we're excited to have you on. You have an incredible story. It's just got ups and downs. But where does your story start?
So my story began I was born and brought up in Dubai, and I lived there for 15 years. And, in those 15 years growing up, I'd been exposed to America. I'd been exposed to all these different ideas. And finally I got the opportunity. We had the whole green card process back then was, you could an American citizen, you could apply as an American citizen for your sibling. So my mom's sister applied for her, and they applied in right when I was born, like in the 80s,
Oh, wow.
80s, yeah. And then finally in 2000s, about 12, 13 years later, we got the call that, hey, it's your turn to do the interview, go through the whole process, and you get your green card.
Wow.
It took that long. Now it's even longer, but back then it was about 12 years. And so we finally got everything. 2001, we moved here 2 months before 9/11.
Oh my God.
July 7th, 2001 is when I land here, and 9/11. So that was kind of in very interesting beginnings in America, in a country that I wasn't familiar to. I'd never visited. It was my first time. I landed here. I just moved here with everything, packed up all my stuff in Dubai, and just brought it here. And so it was very interesting. And after 9/11, I didn't face as much of the turmoil that was going around. I was still I was in high school. 11th grade is when I started here. Again, that's also a rough time, middle of high school. People have already made their cliques, people have already made their groups. So you're the oddball out with this thick, heavy accent, and you just don't look like you belong, clothes from Walmart because we just moved here. And so it wasn't a pretty situation. And so because of that, and because I was, back in Dubai, the way it was is you're in one school, one environment the whole time.
Really?
Kindergarten all the way to 12th grade, you could stay in one campus. You go to different buildings, but it's all in one campus. So you're familiar with the environment, familiar with the teachers, people know you. So I was in this one school for 12 years of my life.
Wow.
And so I knew everyone. It was so familiar to me. And now I'm taken from that environment into this new place where I don't know anyone. I only had 4 family members that I knew, my relatives, and that was it when I moved.
That must have been a wild time. How'd you feel about this? Were you excited? Were you concerned, wanting to stay? Because at 15, that's a very fragile age.
Yeah, I didn't want to come here. I was so comfortable in my space. I'm like, you know what? I have so many friends. I love this environment, and I really enjoyed being there. And then the first couple months when I didn't know anyone here, we started going to high school, 11th grade. It was kind of rough. I remember not wanting to go to school. I remember, waking up in the morning with tears in my eyes, and my mom convincing me, like, hey, just go for one more day. It's going to be all right. So, that little courage that my mom gave kind of gave me the strength to just finish that day. Let me just go to the school, see how it goes. And finally, about a couple months into it, I finally made some friends. It was like 3 of us, oddball out. We would meet up for lunch. And that was like my time where we'll get to have some fun. Otherwise, I was still kind of miserable, like not wanting to be there, rejecting this whole situation. It was still very early. Finally, like 3, 4, 6 months into it, it was starting to grow onto me and starting to make more friends and becoming more familiar. And then it got to a good place, and I was, happy being here, grateful that I was here as well, because at this time Dubai was also going through a growth spurt. That's when all the construction, all of that started beginning in 2002, 2003, and onwards. And then I visited again in 2007. And that's when I was extremely grateful for moving to America, because all of the construction in Dubai had moved a lot of the people out into the outskirts and into other cities in close by. And so you could see all of the shift happening, where like there's like a whole divide. Like there's this bourgeois, like really, really rich people living in Dubai with the fancy hotels and all of that, the malls and all of that. I mean, this is the middle of a desert, and they have a ice rink. They built an ice rink in the middle of the desert, operating at any time of day, any time of season.
Wow.
It's crazy. Like, so the amount of energy and, things it's using. So I realized, like, I didn't want to be here anyways. Like, this whole period that I was moving to America was like perfect timing. Like, it was meant to happen for me. And there was a purpose behind it. So now I moved to America, and I'm here, graduated high school, quote unquote, living the American dream. I was going to college. I had a great opportunity at Georgia Tech, one of the top public colleges in the country. Like, you know what? I'm so excited to go there, and it was right in my backyard. So I started bachelor's Georgia Tech, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to continue, get an advanced degree, so I'll go for a master's. So now I'm kind of in between finishing my bachelor's, going into my master's, and I do this internship. And this was related to my field, something that I was going to do after I graduated. And this 3-month internship, about 2 months into it, I was like, I don't want to be doing this. I don't see myself long-term wanting to do this. It wasn't like, there's something inside of me is like, nah, this doesn't sound fun. And so because of that, what I did is instead of doing a master's, I said, I'm going to do a PhD as well. I'm just going to tack on 4 more years, just stay in school longer, kick the can down the road. I'm not going to worry about it right now. Let me just figure that out later, but I'm just going to stay in school right now.
Yeah. One sec. I don't mean to cut you off, but let's kind of sit in that for a moment, where you were having that moment of doing an internship and then being like, I don't want to do this, because there's so many people nowadays that get an internship and you're like, I guess that was it. I'm not really sure. No one really knows. But like, what for you, did you have similar feelings as like similar to like to Dubai to America? Like, what was that like for you? Because that's a difficult time, because everyone's telling you that this is it. Like, you're supposed to be happy. You're supposed to be grateful, be blessed that you have this opportunity. But like, that's what you hear. So how do you feel about that?
The internship, it was a desk job, sitting in a cubicle, looking at a whole bunch of data on a sheet. I did some projects where we would go out into the streets and collect samples and collect data. I was in the environmental engineering field, so it was a lot of like, collecting samples and things like that. So it wasn't just sitting at the office, but I realized that there was something inside of me. I don't think I fully comprehended what that feeling was at that time. But there was something inside of me telling me, like, this is not it. There's something greater there for you. I wasn't picking up on it at that time while I was going through the internship or just finishing up. But later on, this feeling comes back again. So what happens is, now I'm into my PhD, graduated my PhD, and I'm starting to look for jobs. Like, this is the next thing to do. I graduated PhD. Now what do? I don't know anything else. I'm so focused in this one particular field that, like, imagine the room you're in right now is all of the possibilities available, all the different types of careers, all the different ways of making money. I was picking like one particular dot and just focus on that dot. Like, this is the way I'm going to make my career, focused on this one particular dot in environmental engineering.
I love that you said that, because there are so many times in our life where people are so laser focused on what has gotten them there that they never lift their heads to look around and go, wait, there's other opportunities. You find it a lot in some of these major cities, where someone might be stuck in a hometown or stuck in a city or stuck in a location. it's location bound, it's work bound. It happens all the time, but we can't lift our head up and go, there's more out there.
Yeah.
Just let's wait and see.
I love it. Yeah. And I wasn't looking at what else is there, because I was just focused on that. And that's all I knew. My parents had, my dad has the similar kind of job in civil engineering. His grandfather had it. This is all we knew. And so now I go into this job. It's basically the same job that I was doing during the internship. It was just in a different setting. My whole college, everything was in Atlanta. I moved to Boise for the job. That was the only change. And so I do this job. Now I'm living this comfortable life, everything paid for, all the bills are covered, living very comfortably, partying every weekend, living the high life, the mid-20 age, you know how that goes. And
Absolutely.
I wasn't satisfied. I had everything. I wasn't satisfied. A year into this job, and I was still feeling like crap. About a year and a few months in, again, I started having those feelings that I had during the internship. Like, why am I going to this job that is not making much of a difference in the grand scheme of things? So I kind of had that feeling. Now I was able to actually vocalize what that feeling was. I had the same sensation. So what would happen is I'd wake up every morning. This is about 15 months into that job. I'd wake up every morning and have this pain in my stomach region. I knew it wasn't some sort of like physical ailment that I was going through. It was something greater than that, some message that someone was trying to give me, right? Like the universe was trying to give me this message through this pain, but I wasn't picking up on it. So about a couple months later, now this pain is really strong. It started off very subtle, and now it's very strong. Like every morning I'd wake up and the pain is right there. Like I couldn't ignore it. So at that point, I'm like, I don't want to feel like this anymore. So let me start figuring things out. Like, what is this pain for? And so it was also a very unconscious phase in my life. So I wasn't aware of things, aware of my thoughts and things like that. So unconsciously, I kind of created this, let me sit down and just be with that pain and see what comes up. I don't know how it came up, but something just happened. And then that's when I realized, okay, it's this job. It's that I don't see a greater purpose in this job. Like this, I don't see myself doing this for 10 years. I'd looked within the company. I'd seen other people doing this job, doing this particular career for 10 years in multiple different companies. And, they went from what I was doing to maybe a senior level within 10 years, became maybe one manager up, like their salary went from 80,000 to 120,000 in 10 years. And I'm like, wait a minute, is this really where I see myself in 10 years? I kind of like started putting all of these things together. I realized like, this is not it. There's something greater out there.
Yeah. One of the major things you brought up is trajectory. And when I speak with different individuals, we find this happens all the time where people don't want to be in a place unless they're feeling that progress forward. Mm-hmm. And that progress can be, hey, I've helped one person today, or I'm helping two people today. Or when we dive further, it will be about your volunteering, how that grows and grows and grows. The thing is that most people don't realize that if we don't see the progress, if we don't see the future, then we don't get excited about the destination. We don't get excited about the journey. And I could see that happening. And I think I totally align with what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, that's completely true. Like I didn't see myself doing that in the future. And I'm like, it's time to move on. So at that point I had to convince myself, because I was programmed to think like, oh, this is the next step for me.
Of course.
Like that had been my whole life. And my parents were saying the same thing. Like, hey, what are you doing? You went through 10 years of college and now you're going to give all of it up all of a sudden. Why don't you look for another job in a different company within your field? Again, I was still so focused on that one point, that one dot.
Yeah.
And then I finally broke out of it. I said, you know what? I go through these like visualizations, like let me project myself in those other companies and those other situations to see if I'd be happy. And I wasn't getting those responses back. Like, all the signs pointed towards it's time to move on. So I made the decision. I convinced myself, and finally, about a few months later, I was like, able to convince everyone around me that this is the best thing for me, for my mental health. And so I finally left my job. And usually you give like a 2-week notice, like, hey, I'm going to leave within 2 weeks, right? I was so happy to give a 5-week notice. I just submitted my notice. I'm like, I'm going to be gone by Thanksgiving. The moment I gave my notice, that pain just dropped. Like, I didn't feel that pain anymore. Yeah.
Wow.
So it was like that. Like I felt so relieved. I felt like, okay, now the world of possibilities have opened up for me. All these different opportunities I'm available to. But at that point, I was still like in scarcity mode because I'm like,
What?
okay,
Yeah, let's dive into that a little bit. What year is this, and how old are you? And like, do you have student loan debt? Like, was there any dynamics around that?
so this is another sign that I wasn't meant to do that career is because I don't have any student loan debt. I went through 10 years
Oh,
of college with zero student loan.
incredible.
Matter of fact, I got paid to do a PhD. My tuition was paid for, and I got a little monthly stipend that covered all the whatever expenses that I had. So I was in a very great situation where I graduated with 3 degrees, zero debt, and the world is my oyster. And I had money saved up as well.
Incredible. Yeah, because that's usually a thing that lingers over people where it's like, oh, you owe the money.
Yeah.
Can't leave, you owe money.
Yeah, I know. And people get into that trap that 100,000, 200,000, $500,000 medical loans that they have, medical school loans. And yeah, it's a tough situation, but I was blessed to not have that. This was when I was about 28
So,
to 30, actually, when I was leaving this job.
yeah, so I would say that is one major thing for anyone to consider if they're looking at leaving their job or they're looking to make a change in their life is to really minimalize definitely high interest debt, but live below the means, save money, do the financial literacy steps so that you feel very comfortable of I'm good. I don't need this.
Yeah.
Did you give yourself like 6 months, a year, no time? You were just like, let's do it. What was your thoughts?
Leaving the job.
Leaving the job financially, like next direction. Yeah.
Oh, I mean, this job was like, I'm not going to go back to another job. I knew that in the back of my mind. Like this, I'm going to out of the job game. I'm going to figure it out for myself. And so that's when and I didn't know what I wanted to do. I had no direction, no idea. So first thing that I got into, my friend was in screenwriting. So he was working for movies. He wanted to, become this director. And so he was writing his own screenplay. And so I kind of started getting in while I was also working. I was also diving into this, writing, storytelling, and into that mode as well. So I kind of read a lot of books about screenplay writing. And one of the things that I picked up from there is that life is like has to be like real life, has to mimic real life, so that what you watch on the movie is as believable as possible. Like it can happen in
Oh,
real
wow.
life, right? So that's one of the principles that I picked up from storytelling. And I realized, again, we'll come back to this again. Like, what's your story? The whole course that I put together, it's part of that as well. One of the initial ideas that formed that whole chain of thought. Um, and so while I kind of wrote a little bit about screenplays and things like that, and then from there I said, you know what, let me move on, figure something else out for myself. Then I kind of used my PhD, all of the experience that I had in college, to help international students come to America for their grad school, help them figure out what programs to apply to, what degrees to look for, which cities to go to, things like that. So kind of doing the whole consulting and helping international students out. And so this was again by me and a buddy, and we were like good success in that. We did it for a couple of years. And at this point, I was also diving deeper into spirituality, going into meditation, yoga. And at this point in my career, I wanted to combine entrepreneurship with meditation, helping people live a better life. And that's kind of the soulpreneur title in in the bio. That's where that comes from, is combining entrepreneurship with living a better life.
Yeah, and I completely agree with that. As I started Edwards Consulting, and it just touches on the 5 pillars of mental health, physical health, community service, philanthropy, relationships, and then spirituality. And I just think there's so many areas of life that we don't consider. So a lot of us are very one lane to, okay, I'm got my job, I got a promotion, I'm excited, amazing. But what about your spiritual side? What about your relationships? What about your finance? Like, there's so many other factors. So, how did you view spirituality and philanthropy, and how did you view all this?
Yeah. So when I was working, I was solely focused on that physical material life, just living it. That was all, that was the whole focus. So that was 26, 27 years of my life, no spiritual background. I mean, I'm from the Jain religion, which is very spiritual, and I would go for prayers, but it was more as, hey, my parents are going, they're pushing me to go, so I'm just going to go and do it, right? I wasn't like into it until while I was graduating my PhD, about 3 months before I had to defend my final, dissertation, my thesis, I had gone through a rough breakup. And so this breakup caused a lot of pain and suffering in me for 6 months, a year. My whole time in Boise was that dealing with that pain and suffering. And so while I was going through that, that's when I got started diving deeper into spirituality. I faced a challenge in my life, and now I had to look for solutions. And I went to meditation, and that was the thing. Meditation is the thing that helped me open up my life to all of these other avenues, to different thought processes, and just it was a game changer for me. And so the move to Boise kind of represents that. After you get this pain and suffering, is like the move into the darkness, going into the shadow, going into the cave. Like it could have been a space for me to be in solitude, to be with myself, and to really heal from the inside. But because I was going through so much pain and suffering, I wanted to distract myself, do anything I can to run away from all of this pain and suffering. So I would, I mean, it's not bad to go out for a hike, but I would distract myself. I don't want to deal with all this pain, so I'm just going to do whatever I could to go outside and distract myself, or watch TV, or drink alcohol, or go partying, or eat a lot of unhealthy, nasty food. And so by the time that I was also having this pain in my solar plexus with the career, I was also going through this internal turmoil, and starting to come out of it as well, because I was realizing that I was basically destroying my body. To give you an idea, Friday night, friends would meet up after work, and four of us, and every night, Friday night, Saturday night, we would finish a bottle of Jack Daniel's, 750 ml, 1 liter. And this is just 3 or 4 people. We'd finish that bottle pre-gaming and then go out and drink some more while we were partying and clubbing and all that. So that was my life for about a year. Like, we would constantly, Friday, Saturday, we would meet up and just destroy my body as much as I could.
And I think a lot of people in there, so for myself, I graduated from the University of Tampa, but when I graduated, I was still living in Tampa. So we would still go out to those same areas. And it wasn't until I actually left for an extended period of time, I was traveling around, like in the remote world. Because as we entered the remote time, I went to Denver for a month, Salt Lake City for a few weeks, Nashville for a few weeks. And once I did that, it came to the realization of, I have a lifestyle, but I don't need that in my lifestyle. So I still drink, don't get me wrong, but it's not a let's do it aggressively, or let's do it, you know what I mean? It's more of a casual. And I think there needs to be that step away to open your eyes a little bit. That was at least my experience with it, because there's a lot of people who are still in that cycle.
I completely agree with you. It was that, let me take myself out of my life in Atlanta, go into Boise to kind of move me away from that mindset. Because that was, again, it was that shift from Dubai to USA. I was comfortable with my life in Dubai, and now I came to USA and I was completely out of my zone. Same thing when I was in Atlanta for 10 years, moved to Boise after that. When I went to Boise, the first couple months were really hard. I didn't know anyone there. I worked in an office with 20 people, and most of them were older than me, in their 40s and 50s with families and kids. And so it was kind of a rough time for me the first couple months. But again, once I met a couple friends, that's all I needed. Then all 3, 4 of us just got together every weekend and partied it up. But yeah, it took transition. It took me time to realize, look, I'm actually doing this to my body. I am killing myself. But there was a time where 2 p.m., 3 p.m. while I'm at work, I just fall asleep. I wouldn't have energy to continue work. So I'd have to drink coffee, go out for a walk, get some fresh air, and then finally come back and just, sleep through the 3-4 hours that are left. And so it was like that. And I realized that I was doing this to myself and I could change that. So I finally started cutting out slowly but surely, fast foods, and then slow down on the alcohol. And now I'm actually given up alcohol completely for the last 5 years. Feel
Congrats.
so much better, so much more energy. Went completely plant-based as well.
Wow.
Been vegetarian all my life. In the last about 5-6 years, I've gone to plant-based life as well.
That's incredible. And sometimes there's, like, when you're going through one of those approaches, like you say, no alcohol for 5 years, it's not like a plan. Like, hey, I wasn't planning to go for 5 years. How does that start? Is it just like, hey, let's try 30 days or 15 days? Or for some people, it's even one day?
For me, it started with how I feel, right? So I'll give you a story. This is Temecula, wine country in California, right? Like wineries everywhere. We were sitting there with family. My wife was there, her family, and some friends or family visiting from out of town that come in from Toronto, or actually Vancouver. And we were just hanging out there, and we were drinking white wine at this beautiful winery. And while I was drinking it, I felt like I was pouring chemicals in my stomach, it just felt like chemicals were going down while I was drinking it. And that's when I realized, like, I don't want to feel like this anymore. And I'm going to stop it completely. Like, I'm just going to stop it. That's what I said. I'm just going to stop it. I didn't put a timeline on it. I didn't say like, I'm going to do it for X amount of time. But then every day went by and I don't miss it. I don't crave it. I don't need it. I didn't feel like towards the end of it, I didn't feel like it was benefiting me in any way. And so I didn't really have, drinks all around me, people around me drink, but it doesn't faze me at all. Like I'm at parties, people offer me drinks. I don't need it. I never do anymore. And so that's kind of how it started for alcohol. I'll give you another story about food. Fast food has been in my life for a long time. Like Taco Bell is a huge thing in my community, and so I'd have late night Taco Bell. And the way it stopped again is by me paying attention to my body. I'll eat Taco Bell. And I know right now I feel really good. Taste buds are, it's like, oh, this is amazing. I'm in heaven right now. But how do I feel an hour later? How do I feel 2 hours later? How do I feel 4, 6, 12? How do I feel the next day? How long does it take to process out of my system? I was looking at all of these different things, and I finally realized what foods are good for my body, what foods are good for my energy, and what foods are not good for me, and what should I eliminate from my system. So that's how I started slowly eliminating foods that are not good for me based on how I feel, based on what signs my body is telling me. And that's it. That's all I do. So I don't look at nutrition and all that. I just say, okay, does my body feel good with this? And if it does, I'll keep it. If it doesn't, I don't. Like, for example, I know all of that plant-based protein, the plant-based meats, right? All of that, there's so much that's out on the market. It's got a lot of soy in it, got a lot of wheat gluten in it. And it's got protein in it too. So I tried it. I said, let me just try it. These are lab-grown meats. I don't know what's in it, but I have to give it a shot. So I tried it and my body didn't feel right. It's not just one time. It's like multiple tries.
No, of course.
Every time I tried it, it didn't feel right. So I don't need to have this in my system. Things that I feel good about, I'm going to keep it and just continue doing that.
I love how you changed the perspective on it. It wasn't going into the meal how excited you are, because that's how most of us are. That's how I was for dinner last night. I get excited about the meal. There's very few that actually look, what's the post effect of that meal and how do I feel thereafter? Because you're gauging it on the after. The before doesn't even matter. It's very interesting because that's not a perspective most people think about. And also, I thought your association with I'm pouring chemicals down my throat, that was like one of the ways I stopped. When we have different associations, we don't think of things the same way. So like for myself, an easy way to do associations, if you don't know what it is basically late night pizza. You have the pizza. One side is, wow, that was so amazing. I love it. The other side is, I feel horrible. I feel like, you know what I mean? Like, yuck, that's going to make me like overweight. That's going to make me not feel well. When you are able to look at the other side past just the taste, it really opens up your perspective. So I love how you did that with food and alcohol. It's not something that most of us think about. It's usually a restrictive, not the discipline actually opens me up and I feel better.
Thank you for pointing that out. This is actually the first time that I've realized that that's what I'm doing. Like I'm kind of doing it internally, but comprehending it, understanding what that is, like associating with certain feelings that I don't want to feel anymore. I think that's very accurate. Yeah, I love it. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Absolutely. I thought it was fascinating because we just don't think about it. It's not something we consider most of the time.
And I've started using that more and more in my life, even with, like with the foods, like plant-based and whatnot. It's associating with the feeling that I want to feel and this is removing feelings that I don't want to feel anymore. And the same thing with foods and even ideas that I want to work on. How does it feel internally? And if it feels right, all right, let's move forward.
Yeah. So let's dive into some of those ideas. What's some stuff that after you're leaving the job, what would you look into? What were some of the things that you picked up like in the spectrum of your life?
Yeah, so meditation is one thing that's opened up a lot for me, and the way I started meditating is also very interesting. This was when I moved from Boise back to Atlanta, and I was now I rented out a one room out of my friend's apartment. And in this room were all of my belongings. So everything that could distract me was in that room. So what I did is I focused on the corner of the wall. Where the walls meet, I'm just going to sit there in the corner. So everything all my belongings are behind me. All my distractions are behind me. I'm just focused on that wall. And that's how I started meditating. I said, I'm going to only do for 5 minutes. I don't want to go more. I'll try out different kinds of meditation, right? So what I did is I Googled what meditation was. And, there was a lot of good stuff out there. There's a lot of crap out there that doesn't make sense. And at that time, I was so confused. But as I started meditating, I started discerning what's right and what's not. So I said, initially, I started, I put a point in the dot on the wall, and I just focus on that, where I would close my eyes and focus, imagine on a flame internally. Do like little focusing exercises for 5 minutes. It was hard initially. I couldn't even sit there for 5 minutes. I felt like I was, the top of the ocean is very turbulent.
Yeah.
I felt like my thoughts were like that. It was very turbulent at the beginning. And so some days I would sit there, and I would, the one common question that would come up is, has it been 5 minutes yet? Right. And then I look at the phone, it's only been 20 seconds and it feels like it's been 5 minutes. So that was the other question the thing I did to eliminate that question, that kind of concern in my mind while I was meditating, is I would put a 5-minute timer on my phone and set my phone away so that, my phone is also a distraction. So I put it out of reach, but it also has a 5-minute timer. So I'm not constantly thinking, how long has it been? And so that helped a lot because it removed a lot of, has it been 5 minutes yet? And then I started meditating. I sat down, and sometimes I would last for 2 minutes. Sometimes I would last for 3 minutes. And slowly, I said, you know what? I have to just continue doing it every day. Some days I would miss it, and that was completely okay. I would come back the second day, the third day, whatever it was. I went through a phase where I would also journal. How was my experience going into the meditation? Like, what was my state going into it? What was my state during the meditation? What kinds of thoughts came up during the meditation? And then how did I feel after? What kind of sensations am I feeling after the meditation? So I would write that down. I did that for about a month or so just to keep my consistently doing it. And so that kind of helped me build this meditation practice in this new environment that I was in. So that starts with the very beginning, and it was very interesting. And what I felt that meditation helped me with is one of the major things is it helped me take that step back. Instead of being in the thick of things, while I'm going through an experience, I now have the power inside of me just to step back and objectively look at the situation as opposed to reacting to the situation. I could actually respond to it consciously. So I make it a conscious effort whenever I get into a fight with my wife, for example, to take a step back always and come back to it an hour later, 2 hours later, 5 hours later, whatever it takes. But I don't want to be in that state of anger where I lash back at her.
Yeah, 100%. I think you brought up some really awesome stuff in regard to your whole career and your whole life up to being a doctor and getting that job was pinpoint. You mentioned that several times. It was all focused on one point. And now this meditation time has actually expanded your mind to see different angles, see different opportunities, see different things. And I think that's amazing. And then in regard to your wife, yes, in the heat of the moment, things can get said and you want to remove. It's better to be like, where are you going? Away.
Oh yeah, it
Because you
works.
can
It
come back
definitely
in an
works.
hour and it goes away. It's
Yeah,
fine. You're not bundled up, but
right.
sometimes you got to know when to remove yourself
Yeah.
for sure.
And so you kind of asked, like, what are the things that I'm working on right now, right? So through this meditation, what came up was this idea. So it was through the meditation and then reading
Ooh,
others.
one more thing about the meditation. When you would go in, is there anything that you would think about, or it was just close eyes, take the 5 minutes, see what comes to my head?
It was kind of seeing what comes up because I wanted to, at this point, I had just gotten into introspection. Like 20, 30 years of my life, I hadn't done it. Like I'd never introspected because I was always on that rat race, running from the one thing to the next thing to the next thing. It's constant, right? So I didn't have that space for myself to sit down and analyze what was going on inside of me. What are my thoughts? What are the feelings that I go through? It was just running from one to the next to the next to the next. So finally, meditation gave me that space to like, all right, let me just sit down and see what's going on. And because I would do that, now I go through that throughout my life, like throughout the day. I'll look at different experiences. Like let's say I had an event in the morning, so I'll come back in the afternoon or in the evening and kind of analyze. Okay, what did I do there? Can I do something better? Can I say something better? I kind of like that. That kind of helps me, improve on myself. So this is what
Yeah,
meditation helped me with. Um, and
yeah. I love your check-ins. There's very few times where we go through, and I was talking about it with some people today about reflection and seeing how we're doing. How often do you reflect? Most people, oh, New Year's Eve, reflect. And
yeah,
that's
I
not
don't
even
even,
reflect. That's a look forward. It's never a look backwards. So
yeah,
the fact that you're reflecting several times a day in these different instances, I think anyone could take this away and be like, powerful. Wow, that is it. That's how you improve. Because if we're constantly looking at ourselves from that outside angle, it gives us awareness of maybe I shouldn't have said that. Maybe
right,
I could have done this. I
yeah,
did a good job here, but it's also good to include the positives and the negatives.
oh yeah, oh yeah, yeah. You want to point out what you're doing right, so you can continue doing those, and then find things that you could always improve on. There's always something to be improved on. And so this
Absolutely.
this kind of idea came up that our life consists of the stories that we tell ourselves. And we're constantly telling these stories, meaning, like, let's say, you're trying to make sense of certain situations that have happened in your life. And it's you creating, the perspectives behind it to understand that situation. If someone else were to look at the same set of situations, they would create a completely different story based on their experiences, based on, what they have been through up until that moment in life. And so we're constantly doing this story creation. Go ahead.
Yeah. I mean, would an example of this be, and this is just what came to my mind instantly. I just kind of want to aid to it just to explain. So, like, when you say the story, it's kind of like when I made the decision to go travel. Like, it was, I'm going regardless. I'm going to do this no matter what. Other people could have been like, my whole life is in Tampa. I'm just going to renew a lease and I'm going to do this lease and it's going to be fun. Like, you have to be very intentional to have that different perspective of like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Like, how does that work? Because you're completely right. People are dealt the same cards.
Mhm.
Why does one person win and one person lives mediocre?
Right. It's because of what's going on in their mind internally. And that's exactly right. It's like, what are you telling yourself about the situation that you're in or about to go into or something that just happened? It's all internally created. And there's kind of a mechanism of how it happens on a daily basis. And I feel like if people understand this mechanism, then they'll pay attention to how they're creating stories. So the way it works is, the analogy is this: imagine we're in a movie theater and we're watching this movie on the screen. The screen is a tool that shows the movie. There's a projector in the back that's projecting certain images onto the screen. So projector and the screen are tools, and there's a film that's inside this projector, right? So there's these three different components. So in our lives, there's a projector that we have inside of us. That's our imagination. A third eye right here is projecting images that are fed into it by this film. The film is all of the experiences, all of those defining moments, everything that you've been through up until this point, all of the data that you've collected, it sits in this film. And this film is inside of you. So our imagination is collecting data from this film and projecting it onto the different screens in our life. The screens are the people that come into our life, the situations that come into our life. So like you moving from Tampa, that would be one of the screens that you came across. And your imagination is taking data from your film that's saying that, oh, I want to travel. This is what's best for me. I'm going to be opening up my mind, opening up my horizons to all of these different opportunities when I travel. So that's going to be my story, and that's what I'm going to project onto this Tampa situation. I'm going to leave Tampa and go on the road and travel. Whereas other people will be like, their projection will be like, hey, I'm so familiar with everything that's in Tampa. I just want to stay here. I want to have my friends. I don't want to move out. Right. So that'll be their story. So we're constantly doing this on a regular basis. If we can pay attention to what we are projecting onto other people, onto other screens in our lives will change completely.
Wow. I wrote down what you were saying, and I'm just kind of like, it's perplexing. It's fascinating how this all works. And I think you're spot on, because people see what they want to see. And if we have this imagination, that's why there's people who it's difficult. Like if you had a childhood where they were like, you can't do this, you can't do this, you have to be a construction worker, you have to do this. And you see these people in e-commerce making all this money. You're like, but how are they? You know what I mean? It's that token of possibility of, is this possible?
Right.
Yeah. So I think that completely aligns with what we believe and what we're able to comprehend and even imagine in our own heads. Like you notice when you ask kids, what do you want to be when you grow up? My girlfriend's got a 10-year-old brother, and I asked him what he wants to be, and he's like, in the NFL, obviously. And if you go and ask an adult, what do you want to be? And it's like, it's not what they want to be. You know what I mean? It's a beaten down version of what they think they can be.
Yeah,
limiting. Very limiting. Not the NFL. That's expansive. That's the league. Like,
yeah, for sure. Yeah, they'll talk about the AFL. Just kidding. And so this storytelling is very fascinating because we have the power to change our stories, right? And the way to change the story is to look at the film that's inside of you. And it's up to us. The introspection is up to us to edit parts of that film or to create new meaning to old film. There was an incident that happened way back in your childhood, and the only reason you carry it to this day is because it's in your memory. And if you change your relationship to that incident, moving past the trauma, once you move past the trauma, you change your experience to that incident, it will no longer affect you in a negative way today. That's the only way it's affecting you today, is because it's in your memory. That's in the film. If you can start editing parts of that film to make it so that your life is empowering, your life is, like you're living to the highest possibilities of your life, that's when you're winning in life.
100%. One of the previous guests, Neil Gupta, his whole thing is that he's quote unquote the love doctor. And he brought up a question one time to me, and he said, how do you know if you're like, would it be possible to thank your ex, like your ex partner? And I'm like, I don't know, man. Like they were just, it didn't work out. What do you mean? And his whole concept was they taught you everything that you don't want or factors of what you do and don't want. So even if it was hard, even if it was difficult, they blessed you to meet the person you're actually supposed to meet, in which case you're in this grateful thing. So it's thank you for showing me that perspective. Like, because then you're in a place of I don't care. Like I'm grateful for them, like because they're part of the journey, and that's a fascinating thing.
Yeah,
Which
yeah.
yeah,
If I could be in that gratitude, if I could have been in that gratitude state much longer, much earlier, and after that breakup, I would have been so much happier. But I was like fighting it. I was like, why am I not with her? This is so perfect. I'd imagined my whole life with her, like the American dream, the two kids, the house in suburbia, the
yeah,
little dog, everything with her, right? And yeah, it's just a lot of resistance inside of me.
absolutely. So let's dive in a little further. So we go through the meditation. We have the storytelling. Are you doing stuff with the storytelling? Is there?
Yeah. Yeah. What I've created is a digital course. And essentially, what it does is the film that's inside of you, we're literally, I mean, some people don't know what's in the film. So we're creating that film, right? So I call it the My Life film. Essentially, it's a chart that you put in all of your experiences, positive and negative. And once you put those experiences in, then we'll sit down and analyze how each of those experiences are affecting you today, right? Especially the negative ones. You take the positive ones as well. We'll gain some insights from there. We'll take the negative ones and understand how are they affecting you today, because that is such an important thing to understand, like insight to have. That's where your limitations are. There are certain things that happened way back when, and they're still affecting you today. How is it affecting you? How is it limiting you? How can you overcome that so that we can move forward and have this future that you really envision for yourself? So that the course will allow you to create your film, understand what those experiences mean to you, recreate the meaning behind those experiences, and then envision this future that now you're a new self. What will this new self want to do? Now let's envision this future for yourself and start living it. So that's what this course does. It kind of gives you like breaks down, I'm an engineer. I have this technical mindset, logical thing. I've got to break everything down. So that's kind of what I did. I broke it down into smaller bits and pieces. It's a 30-day course. So every day you get a 15-minute video and about 5 to 15 minutes of exercise that you do to build on your life film. And it's very simple, and it helps people change their life around. It helped me change my life around.
Absolutely. And where can people find this course?
So you can find it on my website, drvarungandhi.com. I'll send you the link.
Yeah,
There's a
I'll put that
tab
in the show
called,
notes for sure.
yeah, there's a tab called Course. You click on it and you'll have access to it. It's in the pre-launch version, so I've given it up for 66% off. So once it goes live, then it'll be back to the original price.
Awesome. That's great for the people to know. Um, Another thing I wanted to touch on with you is something that another pillar in Edwards Consulting that you touch on a lot is community service slash philanthropy. How has that impacted your life?
Yeah, community service. Through one of those introspection sessions, I realized that I've always enjoyed helping people. When I was in third grade, I remember, uh, so our teachers, the way it worked is we had a particular classroom, the teachers would move around. So if the biology teacher would
Oh,
come in
wow.
and teach us, chemistry teacher would come in and teach us, but we'd sit in the same room. And so as the teachers would leave, they would carry all of our books to grade homework and things like that. And I would help them. It'd be like, I'd offer myself like, hey, do you need help to carry all this stuff? Because 30, 40 books piled up is huge. And, they need extra hands. So I was like, I'll help you. So I have these memories that I've always wanted to help people. And now the pandemic hits. April 2020, I get a call from a friend. We've done a lot of local community projects together. And he said, you know what, there's this organization that has money and they want to do something to help people. People are losing their jobs, so there's something that we could do. There's something that we could offer. What is it? So we brainstormed, we thought about it for a while, and then we realized, okay, food is something that's very essential. People are losing their jobs, businesses are shutting down. They don't have a source of income to put money, food on their table. So why not provide them groceries, like raw supplies that they could take home and cook? So we started that with one weekend. We said, okay, let's meet up in early May, put this together, and see what happens. Without much publicity, we created 400 bags. We had enough volunteers, and we were able to give out like 250 out of the 400 bags to people who actually
Oh,
came.
wow.
And then the other 150 we donated to another organization. Then we realized like there's a need for this. There are people hurting. So we continued. Let's just do it for another week. Keep doing it. Keep doing it. The funds were there. They weren't an issue. And we ended up doing that project for about 6 months. We ended up donating 8,400 bags of groceries.
Oh my God.
And then along with that, about a couple of weeks into that project, we said, okay, is there anything else that we could do? We started asking ourselves questions. We realized a part that we're missing is, well, not everyone has a home to cook these meals. Like we're providing them these supplies, but they don't have a kitchen counter to cook them. Not everyone does. So why not provide hot meals? Let's just cook the meals and package it and distribute it. And so we created a plan to do that. Initially, we started out with finding some volunteers to cook it out of their home. So they would, prepare 100 meals, 200 meals, bring it to us, and we would distribute. Finally, but a couple of weeks into it, we involved a few more people in this project, and they brought in some resources. So this is when we were able to expand to the kitchen that we're in currently. The facility that we operated out of had this whole expansive kitchen with it. What we found is a team of volunteers that could go into that kitchen and prepare those meals. So once we found that group, they had experience preparing 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 meals. So once we found that group, we were like, now we can actually scale up to 1,000, 1,500 meals every Sunday. So we continued that from, we started like late May 2020. We've continued that all the way through even to this day.
Wow.
Thus far, we've gone over 100 weeks of every Sunday feeding people. And we have fed more than 200,000 people meals, more than 200,000.
Yeah.
So every Sunday, a group of volunteers meets up in LA. We have prepare about 1,500 to 2,000 meals. And the way it works is we're the community kitchen, and then different organizations that, they have volunteers, they go out into the streets. So they'll come and pick up the meals from us and then take it out onto the streets and distribute them. We realized another pain point that we were solving is there are a lot of these organizations that want to do the great work. They have the volunteers to go out into the streets to hand out the meals. What they also have to do is prepare the meals. And so what I realized is our team realized that why not let us do the work for them? Let us go in early into the kitchen, prepare these meals so that they can come in and just distribute them out into the streets, making their job easy. And this way we were able to feed so many people. We partnered up with about 15 to 20 different organizations every week. And on Thanksgiving Day, last Thanksgiving Day, we prepared about 5,000 meals. Usually we do about 2,000. And this Thanksgiving, we're also planning something bigger. And 75% of the meals are plant-based. They're all vegetarian, but one of the meals has a little dairy in it. So we're feeding healthy meals to the community. And, it's been blessing. Every time we reach out to the community, like, hey, we need help for volunteers, people will show up. Every time we reach out to the community for money, there'll be someone there to donate. Even if it's $5, $10, $15, there's always someone to donate funds. I feel like people are looking for avenues to donate money, to do some good work, put in their time, but they don't know how to do it. So once we talk to them, like, hey, this is a group of volunteers getting together doing this, people come, they want to donate their time, volunteer, donate resources, their money, whatever it may be. So we also have a GoFundMe for this, for anyone that's interested in donating. I'll shoot you the link and you can.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'll put it in the show notes.
Yeah, that'd be fantastic.
Yeah. So I want to say that one of the coolest things you guys did was, instead of it being a one-man show, not just, like a one-man organization or like multiple organizations, you look for everyone to work together as a team, because there are so many issues. Like the fact that you're the one creating it all and then you have all the other ones as distributors, I think is so beneficial, because most of the time it's, what can I do for myself? How can I do? And now it's become a selfless act where we're all working together as a team.
And
So I think
even within our the work that we do, there are also multiple teams involved there. Like we have a kitchen team there that comes in and cooks the meals. Then we have a packing team that takes the big meals and packs it into smaller boxes.
yeah,
Then we have a distribution team. Then we have a supplies team. Someone goes out into the week, in the middle of the week, to get all the supplies, so that the team that comes in on Sunday has everything stocked up for them and ready to be cooked. So it's like all these different teams working together, and that's kind of what I learned, is that teamwork makes the dream work. That's without a doubt, that always works. And a group of people walking in the same direction, all of us will go faster than just one person walking in that direction.
I love that abundance mindset. That's awesome. So, Doc, where can people, obviously we're going to put your website for the course, we're going to put the GoFundMe. Is there anything that you want to leave the people with?
Yeah, Instagram is another great place to connect with me. My handle is Dr. Varun Gandhi. And to leave people with, the one thing that I haven't talked about, and that's also in my title, is the water doctor. And it started as, the PhD is in water engineering. However, I've transformed that into more of a physical, mental, spiritual health. It's essentially a PSA for people to drink more water. I read this book called Our Body's Many Cries for Water. And this is the one book that my dad gifted me in 36 years of my existence. He gave it to me about 12 years ago or 10 years ago when I was in Boise. And I hadn't read it until very recently. But essentially what this book is written by a doctor in Iran. And this is during the revolution in Iran. He was put in jail. And while he was in jail, he realized that the prisoners that are in there, a lot of them, they didn't have energy. They were like basically, leaning against the wall, just half dead on the floor. And he started asking questions like, what is going on? And what he did is he just gave them water. He said, let me just try with water, see what happens. And within 3 hours, he saw a noticeable difference. Within 6 hours, they're completely normal. They had all the energy in the world. And all it was dehydration. And so he said that then he started doing research, diving deeper into all of this. And, he pointed out that the current paradigm, the current thinking is that the medical industry, whenever you eat any kind of pill, it works on the 25% of our body, which is the solid portion. 75% of our body is water. When you drink water, you're actually replenishing 75% of your body. When you eat any kind of medication, any kind of pill, any kind of treatment, that's focused on this 25%. So drinking water can actually take care of just common diseases, common things that are out there. And, migraines, headaches, all of that can be handled by drinking water.
I love that. I mean, that is literally one thing I am so adamant about. I did the 75 hard, and they're like drinking a gallon of water a day. And I was doing that. And I started to realize we live in such a dehydrated state majority of the time. And whenever anyone comes up to me like, oh, I'm not feeling well, drink the water.
Yeah.
You'll feel, it's.
Same thing for my wife. Anytime she says I have a headache, I just hand her a glass of water. I don't even say anything anymore. Just drink.
Drink the water. You'll feel better.
You'll feel better.
Doc, this has been phenomenal. I hope everyone out there, I'm going to put everything in the show notes. And guys, if you haven't yet, grab a drink of water.
Cheers.
Thank you for reaching the end of the podcast. For that, we'll give you a complimentary coaching session in the link below with Edwards Consulting. Hope to see you there and have a great day and keep clocking in.